Shalom and good day all, this is Healing29 back again for another indie comic review, and in this indie comic review I am covering the Jack Kirby Star Warriors with Adam Starr and the Solar Legion, the TMNT crossover with Stranger Things, and last but not least, Gargoyle Dark Ages. So I'll now get things organised for the first one that I'll be covering in the review. So, first things first, with the Jack Kirby Star Warriors, starring Adam Starr, do you get what you see here? And the answer is yes. So what you see here is also what you see inside with the story. So, does this cover in any way, shape or form connect to something that is happening inside with the story? Sure enough it does, to which I give it a 7.5 out of 10. I'll now show you some internal art as well as some of the things that are happening story-wise with the cast of characters. And then I'll move on to the art rating, and same again with the story. So as this story begins, we get, I guess, a bit of a space opera of sorts. And we get to see that there's a bit of a fight happening in space. There's pirates, of course, in space. We learn of a villain by the name of Black Michael, to which the character of Adam Starr will be going up against. As we jump a little bit further into the story, Adam Starr does get captured, and yes, he becomes worm food. Well, it's suggested that he becomes worm food. But does he survive? Jumping towards the end, he has finally escaped, and a little bit later on, we do actually get Adam Starr creating, or starting sort of like a space corps of sorts, which is somewhat similar to the Green Lanterns in its own way. But instead they do it in space, not on land and that. So for the internal art, I gave it a 7 out of 10, as it was actually quite consistent through the beginning to end. Next is the area of the story. We learned that this story takes place in the time period of 2140 AD. One of the locations that do get brought up in this story is Pluto. The cast of characters consisting of Black Michael, Adam Starr, Sailor Lagoon, Julie Starr, who's the character's sister. We actually get to meet his old man as well. We also encounter Great Gansha, and we have Arthur and the Fishmen, and we also have Cyclone Bake, I think it is. Excuse me, I've got some terrible handwriting there, which I'm trying to use from my notes. Really need to fix up. But for the overall story rating in this, I give it a 7 out of 10. Now it's time to move into the TMNT Stranger Things crossover. So as we move into the TMNT Stranger Things crossover, does this cover in any way, shape or form connect to something that is happening inside with the cover or with the story? Sure enough it does, to which I give a 7 out of 10. Now it's time to move into the internal art as we look around the beginning, middle and end, and also what's happening story-wise with the characters. As the story begins, we catch up with the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles with some of the members of the Stranger Things crew, and we get to see some people doing some investigations. We got, of course, Raphael doing what he can to help save others. As we start to jump towards the middle of the story, we get to see the Turtles encounter some stuff Demogorgon related, and we get the return of Lucas, of course, Leonardo and Michelangelo and Donatello. And as we start to move towards the end, we get one of the big bads entering the city. So for the internal art, I gave it a 6.5 out of 10, as it felt like it could have been a little bit better for the story. Next is the area of the story. Do we get anything in relation time-wise? No, we don't. The locations, well, one of the locations that we get to see is a lab. As for the rest, it's not really clearly pointed out. The cast of characters consisting of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. We, of course, have the cast making up the members of Stranger Things. We have Baxter Stockman. We had Lucas, Will, Al, and we did have an appearance of Krang, and somehow he's also a part of this creation that's happening too. To which the overall story rating for this is a 7 out of 10. Now it's time to move on to last but not least, Gargoyles Dark Ages. And as we move into Gargoyles Dark Ages, does this cover in any way, shape or form connect to something that's happening inside of the story? Not so much, to which I give a 6.5 out of 10. Now it's time to move into the internal art as we have a look around the beginning, middle, and of course the end. And also some of the things that are happening story-wise with the characters. As the story begins, we get to see the Gargoyles starting to work alongside with the king of this region, and we actually learn that this region that they are in is in Scotland. As the story advances, we get to see a bit of conversation between some of the characters. This is something towards the end of the story, and I must admit, this is a bit of a turn-off in relation to this Dark Ages stuff, and I really feel that some of this stuff here could probably be put at the beginning of the story instead of the end, because the way they're doing this, it just doesn't really pan out with the story, with what they're trying to show here. Like, they could present this part at the beginning, move us into the animated or the comic part of the story, and it gives us a bit of an outlier as to not only what happened with the story, but also maybe even show us things that aren't related to this particular recording of events that might not have made it into the story. So for the internal art, I give a 7 out of 10. Now it's time to move in relation to the story. First things first, do we get anything any indication of time? To which we get next night being used and some nights later. The location taking place in Scotland. The cast of characters consisting of Kenneth, Malcolm, and Alicent, to which is one of the daughters of one of the royalty that is there. For the overall story rating for this, I give a 6.5 out of 10. Until then, let's keep it colourful and have yourself an awesome day.